Hey, all, welcome to a new episode of Web Visions. My name's Sclomo. I do strategy at VisibleMagic. This is my co host, Vic. Vic, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Victor. I'm CTO of VisibleMagic. We're doing Web3 development and exploring cool new things in AI and spatial computing and a lot of other things.
Exactly. Couldn't sum it up any better myself. We had an interesting talk. We'll call it like intro to NLPs. We talk about what's in them. We talk about some ethics issues, and we talk about how we in Visible Magic, how we are using it to build our products and how it augments our work life. Right? It's a good little talk, and here you go.
NLP is decoded as natural language processing. And this is a very old and very hot topic about transforming and understanding the natural language like we people speak to each other, because it's very vague and very interesting topic by itself, how exactly we think and how exactly we speak to each other. Okay, what are the conversations are, and this is like computational linguistic. It's a topic of 40 years old, and real progress of these GPT models stand on the shoulder of giants who started all this in second half of 20th century. So Shlomo, are you familiar with this thing? Because I had rumors that you are.
I mean, I know about NLPs to an extent, right? But when we talk about so basically, it's NLPs is a way of talking to computers, but in a human-centered, human-readable way, right? Like as opposed to I don't need to know Fortran, I don't need to know C++, right? Instead, it's more of a no-code situation, right? Where I could just start saying things like, I want to write a couple paragraphs like Hemingway writing about farm life, let's say, and it will go and it will already have figured out things like what exactly is Hemingway, how Hemingway writes, which is a little different than normal programming, right? Because when I go into, let's say, ChatGPT, it's inferring a lot of things I'm saying, right? It's not just doing what I'm saying, right?
Exactly. So the biggest application of NLP which we use on daily basis is the search engines like Google, Yahoo. They are the largest thing, okay, and they were pioneers in enterprise. The significant pioneers in enterprise use of this stuff, because the search function which we need is actually the augmentation of our brains by some knowledge base. This search function is what has been in production use since 2000, as far as I remember, maybe 98 or something like this, in the internet. So they started the Google as I don't know, don't remember exactly, during the institute, Sergey Brin and Warren Page were there, and they hit a sweet spot of need to work with extremely large document bases, and that's how the enterprise or internet scale application of NLP came to the masses. So essentially, it's about extracting the sense out of unstructured documents. Because if you do remember, at that time, internet was booming around the XML, like markup languages of any kind, XML, etc.
Yep.
And 5 or I'd say 8 years later, everyone gave up on this and thought, okay, it's too boring to work with XML. Okay, so let's use just JSON, wherever, flat text files, wherever. But essentially, this is the NLP. So, and even till the 2020, dealing with unstructured text was quite heavy engineering task, because you need to build the pipeline to process this unstructured text. You need to build a large corpus of the data, clean up, prepare, etc., etc. So this is very heavy investment we would need to have to make if you want to work with something at the level of the like small, medium, even large enterprise. So this is we need to build a pipeline, maintain engineering costs, support this, train, educate, etc., etc. It's cool, but very expensive. And essentially what ChatGPT and these large models does, they were trained on extremely large corpus of text data, like almost all we have in the internet right now, okay? And they were trained in that way that we can interact with the text and extract some meaningful information with that, with very simple rules to that large language models, okay? Like, what is this about? Like, bring the structural definition of this text, or even summarization, which is it was my topic of research, multi-document summarization of like similar documents, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And even till 2018, it was very hard to build this, like on a productive scale. But these models do incredible work, and this is a real breakthrough in any kind of NLP application we can build on top of this.
I totally agree with you. In my own life, when AIs were called chatbots, and I was doing like Talkabot and working with Howdy.ai, we would have to script a lot of this work, where now we don't have to. And let's just break down what that means to script this stuff. It's like, all right, let's say my chatbot was a recipe one, and the person I need to make every output understandable, from what do I do with a hunk of roast beef to what do I do with roast beef in a slow cooker? What do I do with roast beef this way? What do I do with it defrosted or right? And we had to actually hand build most of those situations that would come out of the chatbot, right? Just like when we made Katy Perry's chatbot, which was one of the first large scale celebrity Hollywood chatbots. I was a part of the scripting group of that. And it was all just going through minutia of Katy Perry, as well as talking to her, to write every version of what a question may be. But that's also, though, like the old version would be when you type in something into the chatbot and it comes back with, I don't really understand you. That is the biggest thing to me that really helps all these NLPs for my customers, is because we don't get that as much anymore, because it's a bigger database that I didn't have to build. Now I'm just augmenting this database. And even earlier than that, when I was growing up, I used to be really into like my Apple IIe, and I used to play this game called Zork, and Zork 2, Z-O-R-K. Do you remember this? If anyone's listening, go to archive.org and type in ZORK, which is an early text-based game that to me was one of the first chatbots ever created, where you would write like, look at the wall, go east, and it would tell you what you do. You go east and you're in a hallway, or you ran into you tripped over a rock, or those were one of the first. And so now we could take these engines, these NLP engines with large, already constructed with rules databases, and put them into things like Zork or whatever, and expand on these universes in terms of how I could talk and function through them. That to me as a consumer is pretty exciting.
Exactly. And I do remember these quite old text-based RPG games. This is essentially what Zork is,
Yep.
And all the scripted things and stuff like that. For example, Siri is a production scale scripted engine, and as we know, everyone, that Apple jumped into this battle of like augmented AI wherever. So because they really, really outscripted, I would say, by these natural language models.
I gotta say, I hate Siri. On my iPhone, I use Google. Google is so much better, and it always has been in terms of like talking to it as a user agent for my phone. Um, does Apple have their own NLP in the works? They must, right? They're going to do some sort of proprietary situation, aren't they? Because especially that they're going to need some of that mixed with whatever new work situations they're going to do on their headsets when they come out in like a year or two. And
Well, it depends because, for example, Samsung announced that they are working on or even gonna release soon a model like ChatGPT, but for mobile phones. Okay,
mm,
so for example, all these huge database can be like mm, can be baked on a small chip, which is which can be embedded even into my headphones. So I don't think this is something incredible or heavy task, which wouldn't be achieved in a 5 years lifespan. So I think that AirPods, let's say 4, gonna have some small chip, and it's gonna be incredible thing. One more, like, we can talk to Siri on your AirPods in natural language. Why not?
oh, absolutely. I'm totally all in for it. I'm ready for my robot overlords to cater to my every whim while controlling my whole walled garden away from me. So thinking of that, like these NLPs, are there any database differences between these large scale? Like, is XAI and ChatGPT looking at the same data?
Well, nobody knows essentially because XAI meant to be trained on, you know, uh, truth data, which we don't know about what exactly gonna be there.
Right.
And I would say this is gonna be like opinionated in a typical Elon Musk way. So we have, by the way, this is a very good ethical concern about these models, and it's a huge, huge topic of uncertainty. How the evolution gonna go, in which way? Because you know the truth angle of XAI is really, really interesting. Like what the truth exactly is, and who's going to censor and control these networks. And because those networks going to be used in a lot of applications, even maybe in real time world, like
Oh, absolutely. Oh, all of a sudden you're going to get some major news moment happening, and that reporter will hop on their phone and chat GPT some answers, and then immediately parrot certain situations on on an international stage, immediately thinking it's true. Because I think of that already, where I'm not a tinfoil hat person or whatever, but I'd be remiss to think Google is on my side in terms of empiricism and truth. They've already shown that, where like I don't, most of my searches, right, I don't necessarily really believe my first 3 pages of Google, right. There's a lot of gamification going on that Google allows, and why wouldn't they have that follow through into their database all the way down to I could pay for my version of the news to be more thought about by the database than a non-paid version of the news. And then how do you decide which version of the news they this engine is going to? It's all a kerfluffle. Like, why couldn't I, as let's say, a right-wing Trump MAGA guy, make my own database that is Trump MAGA-ish, and then have that in the world? But you don't have to tell anybody that there's that bias, right? Obviously, these databases have to have bias.
exactly. This is actually a very interesting topic to reflect on because, for example, uh, when we interact with Google, okay, Google has some bias on what to show, what to hide. This is one fact. The second fact is Google doesn't have any opinion on the content which is inside the links we follow. So they don't amend that content, okay? However, if we're going to talk about XAI, ChatGPT, whatever news Siri, okay, they will present that information from their personal, or I would say AI point of view, and it's been already not discovered, but a topic which been discussed, that this large language model can take deceptive actions to hide their intentions. So they can, pretend that something is meaningful. And so exactly what they're doing from the context of interaction with Google, they summarizing and replaying that content of the page we're visiting from their own point of view. It's like a little gnome which is sitting and telling you what you should be thinking of. And this is very, very dangerous problem we're gonna deal with in near future. For example, let's remember the root cause of recent Bitcoin pump, okay? When it jumped to something like 28,000 in a day. The cause of that jump, of that pump, was essentially an article on a news site, okay, which was telling that ETF gonna be accepted soon or something like this.
Right, and that just made everything speculate.
Speculated. That was on Cointelegraph, and they removed that article after 1 hour. Like, okay, it was a premature, it was a wrong, misleading action, etc., etc. So nobody can predict what's gonna be if large language model trained on some real-time tweets gonna tweet something in real time, like, okay, I see the nuclear missile launch, okay. Can you imagine this? I personally not in this hot topic or hot era we have right now. So what's the difference? I think the censorship or level of censorship and opinion or opinionated view on facts is the difference.
Yes. And by censorship, we mean who is going to pay to have their information pushed. I believe it's not so much a suppression so much as who is paying to have information pushed before other information. That's how I feel. But that's going no here than there. So let's talk about let's bring this back to us and how we are using this. How are you personally, like, what has your last little couple interactions been in terms of a workload way with NLPs?
Okay, so what I'm doing with ChatGPT right now, I'm using it for document processing, like some other very insightful summarization machine. Like, okay, please extract the sense of this information, throw that, and that. What is all about? What is the actors, and so on. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first use case, and it was really helpful. Like, okay, please write the spec on this. Okay, we have this like specification for use cases or user stories. Please write some code on this, and it works like a magic. I was like, okay, miracle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And second use case, which I really like about, is extraction of entity extraction from the text, like what is about, who the actors, what is about, what is the relationship between them, and so on. And these can be presented in a structural way. Okay, so the chatbots which we had to build way more before is much less expensive. The work we need to make I mean, like programmers, is much cheaper right now just to query ChatGPT through OpenAI API. This is so beautiful. Like I can build the very cool things to process the data, to extract some context, to even to mark up the data. Okay, I can ask ChatGPT like, please mark this document up. What is the tokenize it? What is the all about, and so on, to train another models. And this is so beautiful. This is the coolest part of it. Do you remember how many would cost? How much money would cost? And how many hours we need to spend just training the corpus, like marking the corpus up, like preparing all these documents. Then we started to use the mechanical Turk to do some manual labor there. And then we have ChatGPT. Okay, and this is like so beautiful. It can be done almost instantly, or at least it can be parallelized. So this is the rudest part of this work with unstructured data, and it can be done by a machine. And this is a real miracle from developers and engineers' perspective.
That is awesome. For myself, what I've been using it for is a friend made a product, just like an internal method that he's selling, that listens to my meetings and shoots out a summary. I have mixed feelings about it because it doesn't get the nuance of humanity in what it's writing, right? So, humans, we could be inflective, hyperbolic, and say things, but what we're saying in the meeting is a little different. And I find like on very heightened meetings of, let's say we're all deliberating a situation and we're like, we got to make a decision about it now, right? And so how we would all talk about and at it, it breaks it up okay, but it has a hard time understanding the meaning of how people are feeling, right? So when you have that one stakeholder not in that meeting and they're just reading this very happy quarter page, half page summary that is totally optimized for a knowledge worker, right? You want to get through it in a couple seconds and it's kind of bullet pointed out. It's missing this person actually, let's say, is not into any part of it. And this part, it can't say unless I actually say I'm out, then it would say Shlomo is out. So it'll be interesting on how it gets that, which it will, because AI does understand inflection. It's just not built in on NLPs yet, but it will be, right? It'll be able to, just like how we already understand through AI when you're on Facebook. Facebook understands when you're writing in a depressive state or in a happy state by your word choice. That's AI. And so that will come into audio, right? So that's one thing I've done. And two, the thing everybody does it, which, oh God, like 10 years ago or so, I used to do this talk called The Tyranny of the Blank Page, where to go from 0 to 1 takes 85, 90% of your time. And then to go from 1 to anything else takes like another 5%, right? And so it helps you put words on a page that I could start editing and adding to, which is what I think most people are doing. That is non-drawing based. We are just going to and say, I need to write out a recipe for roast beef. I don't know why I keep going back to roast beef recipes. And it will start that recipe, and then I could start augmenting it. Well, that should have more garlic, let's say, right? That use case, which is I feel most people are doing it, has still been incredibly helpful. I'm really looking forward to the assistant level to listen and not just read my emails. That is when things will get game changing for me personally, because I'm in a lot of voice meetings,
Yeah. And I just remember one thing, the use case I really liked, when I can throw a large or long video into the service, which is actually use the large language model, and it can build a summary of like key notes the key moments of the video, and summary of the topics discussed in the sections, and most important, the video can be broken into those sections. So I can really get understanding what it's about and pick my personal preference piece of that video and save, let's say, 1 hour of watching the YouTube, just reading 5 minutes summary. It's so amazing. It's real life-saving for me.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Okay, we are kind of heading towards the end of our time. I know you've been playing a lot with building little NLP models and such. I'm screwing around with and writing some rule-based stuff. In a future episode, we're going to highlight and showcase some of that work and let people know how they could play around with it, right?
Awesome.
And yeah, any last words? Anything you want to tell the people? We're bullish on this stuff. We're into it. We love it. We love this.
Absolutely.
Stuff. We're not scared of the AI overlords around here, because we are smart people, and the AI is not as smart as us. They just have a bigger data set they can touch quicker than I can. That's the only thing, and it gets me excited.
Yep. Me too. Excited as much as possible. Absolutely love the things, and it's a really cool toys we like to play with.
Yep. All right. Well, this is our intro to NLP, I guess we'll call this for right now, over here at VisibleMagic. This is our podcast called Web Visions, if I remember. We're still working on that name. I'm not sure. Click like, subscribe, love us. Reach out to us. We're at VisibleMagic, and we'd love to know what you need built. We are a web dev house in dealing with Web3, AI, and all the early stuff. As you can tell by this talk, we're not new to the world. And thank you for your time, Vic.
Thank you, Sclomo. Thank you so much.